When I look at our history, I realize that our history is not negotiable. It's not defined by slavery. It is a profound history, and we need to teach it in honesty. Don't know why I didn't put me on. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Erudition Network. Welcome to the Erudition Network. This is the Erudition Network, Black History Interactive program. I'm a little late tonight. I didn't know if we were going to be able to do this show, but I am glad that I am with you all live tonight. If you don't catch the live, I understand. It's late in the day. However, if you are catching the live, hey, please feel free to share. Hey, Tina, I do see you here. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you do get a chance to go on and come on live, I'm greatly appreciative of it. However, if you watch the recording, I'm just as happy. I want you to feel free to still put your questions in chat and talk about this show and what we're going to talk about tonight. Share the Erudition Network. It definitely helps us to ensure that everyone has the ability to see these great programs and be able to interact with them. We want people to interact with the program because we want our network to grow. We have been doing phenomenal, great over the last few months, and I want that to continue. We've had such a great amount of turnout and people watching and commenting on Tina's program and this the History Interactive, and I want you all to continue that. I know that comes from you all sharing and providing people with the links and getting them involved, and that's what we need. Right now in this time where we're dealing with a lot of people fighting against Black history about knowledge. This is something that we definitely want you all to do. I will tell you, if this is your first time watching this show, this is your first time joining us or watching the recording, my name is Eddie Phillips. I am a public historian. I am a military veteran, Navy veteran. I am a expert researcher, a outstanding analyst, and I don't usually brag about myself, but I was told that I should talk about these things. And I am the host of the Erudition Network Black History Interactive and Knowledge Session. We try to do these programs on Thursday evenings. I've been having to do them on Saturday. Today, I didn't know if I would be able to do it today, but I am here. And if you have seen any of our episodes or what we've done on YouTube, you can go back and you can pull all those up on YouTube. There's Adroit Living episodes. Some of the boys, they haven't been on in a bit, Erudition Generations. And of course, you can always pull the Black History Interactive sessions. There are over about 500 videos, I believe, that are on YouTube that you can watch and definitely get on and learn. And if you know anything about us, you know that we don't play around with facts and history. We investigate, we challenge, and we try to make sure that we are factual. The Black History Interactive is just that. It is an interactive program, and it is where we want you to opine, talk, give your opinion, come with facts, but give your opinion. We go beyond the textbook on this show. We look at the hidden stories of Black history. We look for the names that were erased and the truths that people have buried and tried to keep from us. And we try to do that without bias and without inflicting any kind of blame. We want you to learn. And so we want you to grow your understanding. You know, on this show, you'll hear about a lot of different things, and it won't just be slavery. I do not believe that we start our history in shackles. I do not believe that we start our history in subjugation. I want to talk about the African empires. I want to talk about the advanced civilizations that Blacks, Africans, they come from, the architecture, the building, the Black resistance, all of those things that happened even before the triangle slave trade, even before emancipation. I don't want us to limit who we are to just that. And we want to also tie our history, though, in with what is the modern policies and the things that are still echoing and problematic for Black people in the areas of injustice, police reform, and all of that. This isn't a program where I wanted to make sure people understand that, where it's just me speaking. This should be a conversation. This should be an interactive back and forth. This should work as a cyber classroom. It's a time for us to think and to clarify and to try to look at things critically. It is so important right now in this day and age that we look at things critically. Everybody, even me, is a student. We are a student. I don't care if you're a parent, an educator, if you're someone who doesn't feel you know anything. You should still be hungry for history, hungry for knowledge, hungry for the truth, and you should prioritize your history. This is what this show is about. We are facts. Facts are stubborn things, and we need to be stubborn about how we inform. And I want you to subscribe, I want you to share, and I want you to grow. And I want this to be something that we all learn from. So if you don't see 15 people, 20 people on the interactive as we started, that is not the point. The point is who's here, who's asking questions, and what it is that you're learning. That's what we're doing tonight. And that's what we want you to continue to do. Got a little bit of a different setup here. As you see, things a little bit more spaced out, but that's fine. And I like that so that I can be able to better go into a lot of these subjects. Tonight, I was given a little time during that intro to also see if we were getting people to come in for the interactive, those who are going to join us for the live. If you are watching us on Facebook and putting in suggestions or comments, I would ask you to go to the YouTube station, go to the YouTube channel, because for whatever reason, and they still haven't fixed it, Facebook is having problems a lot of times showing us your comments. So I want you to join us, but I want you to do it so we can actually see what it is that you can see. We can see what you're talking about. You can and interact with you properly. Tonight, there's been so many things going on. And so what I want to do is to get into a subject tonight that has so much, that's my phone, that has so much history behind it, that we can actually sit down here tonight and cover. And what that is the impact and the hidden and blatant issues of racism and racist policies that are in our past, but at the same time informing our present. And we want to do that so that it does not destroy our future. And for some reason or another, I think that many of us are not seeing that this is a cyclical thing and that this is something that has been happening for quite some time. I'm not saying that we should continue to have these problems, but I am saying that there are a problem that we have to face right now. Well, what I should say, I'm not saying we won't continue to face them, But I do believe that we could do a better job at challenging them. And I think to a certain extent, we have failed to do that. And we keep regurgitating fallacies, false equivalencies, things that don't make any sense. We keep lying to ourselves that these things are not important, and so forth and so on. And what I want us to understand as we go through this tonight is that this affects all of us. And though we lie under the guise of color or race or culture, the truth is we're all being affected by it. We're all being led down the same path over and over again, and it is causing us severe problems, severe issues. And the only way to move forward, the only way to get around it, is for us to start to discuss it. So that's what we're here to do tonight. That's what we're going to do tonight. I don't have a specific, I see, let me make sure I get you guys' comments. John, U.S. is built on systemic racism. Sadly, it will take hundreds of years to cure it. So here's the thing, John. We've been saying that for more than 100 years, right? We've been telling ourselves that the U.S. is going to be able to fix this, and it's going to take decades, if not a century or more. And many of us have aligned ourselves to these thoughts because, quite honestly, that's what we've been led to believe, right? That's what we've been led to believe. We've been led to think these things. And we often hear people say the same regurgitated things, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But as Colin Powell once said, what if they never gave you shoes? Or you could add to that, what if somebody took your shoes? And for generations after generation after generation after generation, that's what we've been hearing. And then they blame us for walking barefoot. But it's been taken. Today's episode is not about blaming everyone. It's about uncovering what it is that we have seen. I can say to you that it is built in, but at the same time, right, there are people, or there have been people, organizations, and others who have pushed back on it. If we could look back through 300 years of deliberate, systemic racism, and look how it has oppressed. But not only that, look at how it has been allowed to profit. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And whether you're talking about slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, you're talking about the GI Bill, which I know about being a veteran and the history of it. Rather you talk about the mortgage crises, rather you talk about voter suppression, police brutality, on and on and on. And we have to understand that these are things that continue and have continued through history. And they continue to bother us because we keep telling ourselves just kind of what John said. You know, Dr. King said, how long? Not long. Nina Simone's, you know, talked about how in Mississippi, God day, right? She talked about the fact of they keep telling you to hold on, wait. Now, she didn't say God dang, she said something else. But the truth is, that is the feeling that she had. It's a frustrating feeling to feel that you can't move the ball, right? That you can't go further. And so we have to look at these things so we can learn. Because if we don't do that, I promise you, my brothers and sisters, we're just going to spend our time spinning our wheels, telling ourselves that we can do these things, when in reality, we can't. We're held back. And so I want to talk about that tonight. And I really want to kind of go into these things. One of the issues, and I'm writing this in my current book, is let's talk about some of the revisions here tonight. Some people will tell you that slavery, and I've heard it especially recently, right? Slavery was not that bad. Every society had slaves. Every society had slavery. And we lie about that because we misconstrue. A guy sent me a message on YouTube, on one of the shorts we put on YouTube, and he said, the thing about it is that you're saying it's propaganda when you say that Eastern slavery was not as cruel as Western slavery. Well, facts show what it is. The facts show what it is. Slavery, and I hate to dwell on that, chattel slavery is one of the worst things that ever happened in the world, because it was the idea that you owned everything from that slave. They had no rights. They had no claim to their babies. Rather, those babies came from rape. Rather, those babies came from love. It didn't matter. The baby was theirs, right? And when you face that fact, right? When you face that fact and understand what that means, what that really means, then you start to really get it in your mind, right? How horrible that is. I talk to people a lot of times and I say, parte sequitur ventrum. Parte sequitur ventrum. I think I've said this weeks before. I'm not casting a Harry Potter spell. Parte sequitur ventrum that came in 1600s is what the law stated. That everything that came out of the mother was owned by the slave owner. She had no rights, alive or dead. If the baby was born dead, that baby could be used in medical study. Anything could be done with it. The mother did not own the child that came out of her womb. She had no claim to it. And there was wealth in that, because now the slave owner could take that baby, and the slave owner could take that baby and make money off of that child. He could do whatever he wanted to do. That's what it was. In the 1860s, enslaved Black people represented more value in horses, factories, railroads. They were a catalog in a bank that showed you were wealthy. Blacks were the economy. Slaves were the economy. The Constitution, right, was written to give claim to the value of a slave. If you go back and you look at the 3/5 compromise, if you go back and you look at the election laws, they were designed to show the value of the slave. Southern planters wrote down how many slaves they had as bank loans, for bank loans. They insured them in the North. So the North made money off of it. And some of the banks that you see today, the Aetnas and the JP Morgan, all of these banks, New York Life, that's how they created those banks. That's just the truth. Let's go further. Universities, your Yales, your Harvards, your Browns, and many, many more, they took donations from slave owners who had made money from the slave trade. They based a lot of their institutional wealth off of what was brought in from the plantations. So why is that important? Because that is what we're talking about tonight. It shows how these blatant impact of racist policies gained wealth, provided wealth to the Americas, and got us to where we are right now. And so you ask yourself, why did America become so blatantly murderous to blacks? Well, after the Civil War, 4 million estimated enslaved black people were free. They had no money, they had no land, they had no nothing, but they were property that was released. They had skills, knowledge, things that had been given to them through as they were going through slavery. I shouldn't say given, that they had learned. We all go with this lie, you know, that William Tecumseh Sherman said that in 1865 that we should all be issued by field number order 15, 40 acres and a mule. Well, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And it didn't happen because Andrew Johnson decided that it was best to give the lands back to the very slave owners who had fought against the country. And so that land that was supposed to be given to the people who had tilled it, who had bled in it, who had died, the families that died in it, was given back to the people who had done that to them. And so that was one of the first times post-slavery that African Americans specifically were denied wealth. That America initially said, we would give you. And they took it. You could call it a theft of land. It's the reason why we all ask for reparations. And we say, hey, you never made it right. You stole generational wealth by telling us we could get one thing and then taking that from us. And many of us don't go back to do that research. So when anyone says reparations, we act as if somebody's trying to make an unfair claim or something, but this was written. Go read field order number 15. And it went further. By the early 1900s, even though black families managed through hard work and sharecropping to acquire what we estimate to be about 20 million acres of land throughout the country, and it cost blood, it cost everything, sweat and tears and everything, but they got it. And so roughly around 1915, just before we started to have an actual tax in America, because we had to justify the reason of having all of these slaves freed, free labor, we had to pay for the things that we were doing. Tariffs didn't work. That rings on to where we are right now. The McKinley tariffs didn't work. So what we did is we decided, hey, we're going to tax. And violence shot up. In towns throughout the country. You know some of the names going from 1910 into the 1920s. You know some of the names, the Rosewoods, the Tulsas. You know of these. We know of 1919, Red Summer. We've talked about that. But through trickery, through legal laws, through black codes, through lynchings, through rigged courts, 90% of the land that they had worked through Reconstruction to claim was taken from them. That is the fact. 90% by most estimates was taken from blacks that they earned from the end of the Civil War to the beginning of the 1900s. By the 1920s, you had black people fleeing the South. Today, by 2020 estimates, black people own about 2% or less of the rural land in America. But many of them actually have deeds for the land that was taken from their families historically. That's a fact. That's a fact. If you want me to provide you with the facts and where that comes from, we will do that after this episode. I will drop it here like I always do. And if you think that it's only America, this happened globally too. In the Caribbean and parts of Africa, this was taken. There is a difference, though. There is a slight difference. In the Caribbean, the British paid reparations for property that they felt was stolen. They didn't pay it to the slaves or the blacks. They paid it to those who were leaving the land. There's a great actor. I like him. Benedict Cumberbatch came under fire about a year or two ago because it was found that one of his ancestors were one of those people who were paid reparations, and it went into the wealth of his family. Generational wealth that helped his family even up to him. That's how far generational wealth goes. When the slave owners were paid money and reparations, even during and before and just the Civil War, this was going on. That was wealth. And now, today, we have white people, some racists, majority of them who are doing this, telling us to get over it, stop living in the past, don't need reparations. Why are you guilting us? Why are you making us feel bad? Right? They do that to get around the history. Sadly, it still exists as sex trafficking, probably less than tip house for you. Again, sex trafficking is horrible. But I think I laid it out to you earlier, John, how bad chattel slavery was. It wasn't just sex trafficking. There's a right to kill, murder, destroy human beings at your choice, legally, not illegally, legally. The Dutch is way worse than UK and France. We could debate some of those things too, and I think that would be a great show to have. Thank you. I do agree. Please hit that button. We do appreciate it. Right now, we have so many people out here screaming for racial sectarian mentalities that it is really disturbing. Right? We have to understand the reason why we can ask for those things is because this ain't no ghost. This just ain't the past. People still have land policies. They still have bank accounts, inheritances that are built off the backs of generational wealth stolen from indigenous and black and immigrant people, unapologetically telling you to get over it. Get over it. As if you don't have the right to say what it is that you're saying, as if you don't have the right to say, wait a minute, you stole from me, you took from me. That is what I'm talking about tonight. And I'm sure there's going to be pushback and people saying they don't want to hear that. But it is what it is. By the 1930s, because we talked about the 20s, the 10s, and the early 1900s, we started to move. People started to getting this dream of expanding their country and going into these big cities. But what happened? We started to gate the cities. So by the time we got from the 30s into the 40s, the government created what is called the Homeowners Loan Corporation, HOLC, HOLC. And what it was meant to do, it was meant to save homes from foreclosure. It was a good, noble thing. It was something that FDR done put in. But then there's this sinister part of how did it decide what home should be saved from foreclosure? How did it decide who to help? And so people like Theorella LaGuardia in New York, along with many people in the federal and state governments, decided that what they were going to do is draw up maps. And we've heard about these maps. If you do any kind of history study, you will hear about the redlining, the red maps. Who was Black? Who was Latino? Who was Jewish? Who was immigrant? And where should they stay? And let's mark a red line around it and call it hazardous. It's not good for you to stay in these areas. And the property values in these areas are low. And we're not going to really help those people as much as anyone who lives outside of it. And this wasn't just something that was a small choice with just a select amount of people. The FHA, the Federal Housing Administration, banks, realtors, they all followed those maps and were told to legally follow those maps and to not deviate from them. If you lived in a red zone and you wanted to not lose your home and you put in a loan application, you were denied. You couldn't get your house appraised for its value fairly, no matter how pretty or beautiful you kept it. It had no value. And you couldn't credit it as something for a business. It was not collateral. It was not something that you could borrow out of to create a business. And if we lie and we tell ourselves that it's just about the income, it was just about, no, it wasn't that. A poor, it's proven, a poor white family living in a green zone who didn't really have a lot of money had loans approved. Low interest loans at that. An affluent, well-earning, trying to establish themselves, a middle-class Black family, say the person was a lawyer, a writer, W.E.B. Du Bois, all of these different people. It did not matter. Those families who were in a red zone were denied. So when we talk about these red zones, we're not just saying that they told people, if you live here, this is where the bad people live. No, they were denied things that were given to other American citizens simply because of the color of their skin. And as a result, we had riots, We had anger. We had catastrophe. We had things that went wrong in the country from the 1920s all the way to the 50s because people felt. People know when you don't care about them. Over those 20 to 30 years, those white homes gained value. They borrowed and they opened up businesses. They opened up taverns. They opened up grocery stores. They opened up small businesses. And they grew into what we called the middle class. You look at the people who were told, the black folks who tried to move into Levittown, right? Do you know what Levittowns were? Maybe many of you don't. I'll ask this question because this will be interactive. Who can tell me what a Levittown was? I'll give you 30 seconds. Anybody? What was a Levittown? There's 7 of y'all on here. Somebody can answer something. Come on, man, interact. Let me know. What was a Levittown? It's an important point for you to understand about history here and the history of wealth. What was a Levittown? I don't even care if you Google it. All right. Nobody wants to bite. A Levittown were suburban towns built by the FHA loans. They were almost 99% white by design. Only white people were allowed to be in those Levittowns. Right? I put it in there, John. I put it in there. I know. That's why I put it in there. Sometimes it's hard to try to understand that spelling. But a Levittown was, yeah, they were all over. Suburbs created by FHA loans. 99% of it was white by design. Those are the Ozzie and Harriet homes that you saw, and everybody had a car, and everybody had these loans, these low interest loans, and they were living it up. Right? But while black folks lived in created projects, right? And they remain in crowded cities, areas. They were underfunded. The neighborhoods were dilapidated and failing. And even if they kept their home up, right? As I said earlier, even if their home was the best looking home on the block, it gained no value. So whites were able to take that money that gave them value. They were able to take the equity from their homes to pay off college tuitions because college didn't cost as much back then. They were able to use startup capital. They gave them retirement security. They could actually retire and live. And so when we talk about the hidden and blatant impacts of racist policies, we have to understand that those black neighborhoods were disinvested. They did not have wealth. And then later on, with people like Robert Moses in New York, they came up with this idea of eminent domain. So the home that you owned for 30 years as a veteran, who you may have gotten coming out of World War II, World War I, right? They said, you know what? You don't even own this home anymore. Eminent domain. And they literally paved highways in New York. Go read about Robert Moses, Theorella LaGuardia, FDR, who initially was the governor of New York and then became president of the United States. And though we look at the New Deal as a positive thing, let's look at what came out of some parts of the New Deal. And so when we got to the 60s and we started talking about the Fair Housing Act, people say, well, what do these people need a Fair Housing Act for? They got houses. Senator Strom Thurmond got up there and railed in the 60s against any of the laws that were being passed. He actually stood up there at the Lincoln Monument and made the comment and said, the blacks here have televisions, cars, and everything. What do they have to complain about? He ignored the fact of the poor schools. He ignored the fact of the higher pollution. He ignored the fact of the lower life expectancy. He ignored the fact that there were fewer hospitals. And even if the hospitals that they had, they were underfunded and did not have the materials enough to keep people alive. So the infant rate dropped. And we keep saying to ourselves that this was just, racism. No, it was the policy of America, not only in the South, but in the North, all the way to the West. This was the policy of America. And when we talk about this history now, we get people that tell us, hey, man, hold on. You woke, right? You being woke, man. You can't be telling us this stuff. No, we shouldn't be teaching our kids this. It's going to make people hate us. But the redlining was written into those mortgage statements from your grandmama and granddaddy. It was written into the tax maps. It was written into the zoning codes. It was written into your life. And you didn't have a right to it. Because the policy of the United States was that wasn't your right. And so when I hear people even today talk about this, it disgusts me. Because again, share this episode. Tell them what these things meant. They are the ones who went and drew up these red code maps. The racists, the bigots, the xenophobes. They are the ones who put minorities in ghettos, just as the Nazis had people in ghettos to feed the wealth of America. Put you in the projects like Cabrini in Chicago. Put police stations right within those project communities to maintenance you, to make sure that the criminal element that was there didn't get so out of hand that you couldn't go work downtown or go work in the shops for the very people who were getting those FHA loans. The people who could drive out to the suburbs and be away from you. No, I'm not. I don't call myself conservative. I don't call myself either that because I don't ascribe to that. I am a historian. I am a public historian. I'm only going to give you facts. And I take no disrespect in that, my brother. This is what this is supposed to be, a conversation. I'm talking to you tonight because we're starting to see that we're falling back to this. At the end of World War II, at the end of the New Deal, coming out of the Depression and World War II, America had a chance to do something different. It had the chance. And it still pulled back. Service members came back and were still being oppressed, still being attacked, being murdered. The South still wanted to keep everything away. And though America had stood at the crossroads at about around 1950, it decided it wasn't going to do anything different. Around 1944, America first took those first steps. They decided to do something called the GI Bill. And the GI Bill is revolutionary. And many of us who are veterans, we have benefited from it. But the history of it is nefarious. It was a great policy where veterans could get low-cost mortgages, college tuition, and it made sure that they had unemployment benefits coming back as they tried to go seek employment or skills. But here's the thing. In 1944, there was a twist. The GI Bill wasn't discriminatory as a policy. But as it got executed through states, through federal agencies, it got influenced by Jim Crow, by Black codes, by racism. Black people, Black veterans who fought against fascism, against Hitler, return home to face racism and being treated as second-class citizens as they had just gone to go fight over to ensure the rights of Jewish people and others against fascism. But they couldn't enroll in colleges as equal students. They couldn't acquire mortgages or loans. In Mississippi, I looked at the statistics in the 1962. Out of the 3,200 VA home loans, 3,200 VA home loans in 1 year, only 2 went to Black veterans. 2. When they tried to move in what those things we call Levittowns, oh, that was unsuccessful. They were rejected. Jackie Robinson, you know Jackie Robinson, who broke the color line for baseball, was given credit for that. He also got rejected. He couldn't live in certain areas. This was it didn't matter how famous you were, didn't matter who you were left behind. You were told what you could not do. But today, I hear politicians, rather it be Trump, rather it be people on the conservative side. Heck, I even hear some liberals telling you that the 1950s was a great time. That the Ozzie and Harriet time, that was the America gone by. That's when America was great. And we should make it great again. And we ignore the policies and the denials and the violence. We ignore the Jim Crow laws that kept people not only from voting, but living in certain places. We ignore the sundown towns. We ignore all of those things that were going on that gated that era off and told you you didn't belong or your grandparents didn't belong. So when they tell you, let's make America great again, you got to ask yourself this question. And then you reference the 1950s. Who are you making it great for? That's not a dig. That's a fact. Because I'm giving you that history tonight. Truncated as it may be, because I can't in an hour go as deep as I would like. But if the blueprint that we're building this nation by excludes people, right, then it ain't a complete build. Who are you building it for? When you push people out, and it's a bill by exception, then there's a problem here. There's a problem here. I talk about the GI bill, because it is something even today that can benefit people. But if you go buy a home in certain places, oh, it's not redlined. But I've lived in areas, my wife can attest, where people look at you like, why are you here? Why do you have a house in this area? How did you get that loan? I've had a person sit next to me and say, yeah, but you don't qualify, even though my bank told me that I did. And then lied. And my wife and me had to go through jumps and hoops with the actual company selling the property. Because the man who was supposed to be getting us in the home, when he realized that we were Black, all he had an issue. and start telling us how we would have to do this and jump through this hoop and that hoop in order for us to attain a house that we have. This is real. This is real even to this day. And it is why we need to talk about it. Lastly, in the last few minutes that we have, about 10 minutes, we got to ask ourselves, where do we go? What do we do? Right? Because now we're starting to see we're going back to these times. Agencies that were put into place to ensure that fair and equal treatment are being taken away. And people are telling us that this is all based on merit, when we know for a fact, historically, that the only reason why these organizations were ever built was because there was no merit. I've told you now, this was just policy of the United States. And those people who are sitting in these positions should know this history. And many of them do, which is why they deny it to you. Which is why it's not taught in your schools. Which is why you don't know about it. When I ask a question on this program, I don't expect that everybody will answer. Because I know, because I've had the same schooling that many of you have, right? Of what was taken away, what was hidden, and what wasn't said. But if we keep telling ourselves that the past is the past, and we don't understand that the past is what has set the present's foundation, we're going to have problems. The past is the foundation. And if the foundation is corrupt, then we're going to have problems. So we have to fix that foundation so we don't crumble. Pat Starton, good to see you. America is great. Greatly prejudiced, great in the persecution of Black people, great in discrimination, and so on. Yeah. It has refined it. It has taken the ideas from the past and pushed it down and not realized that the foundation is corrupt and it will break under pressure. If you look at cities like Evanston, Illinois, who lately now is talking about doing something about reparations funded by their cannabis tax revenue or whatever. If you look at other places in the country where now they're talking about reparations because they have to look at what was going on and they got to fix or repair the breach. Well, I shouldn't say they got to. I think they have to. Because you have to have a sense of, we own this and nothing will be right until we fix this. When they go back and they look at their housing discrimination, their policy discriminations, when you go back and you look at Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, and you look at the land that was stolen from Black people. And when certain people start to encourage you, hey, go back in your family and look through your family tree and see who owned land. Why did your family during the Great Black Migration, why did they flee to the north? Many of them fled with nothing but the clothes on their back. And they left everything because it was life or death. And for generations now, people have built houses on land that they own. That was rightfully theirs. And when you come back with a lawyer and say, wait a minute, my grandfather had a deed. This is our land. Your grandfather took it. Or the lie of eminent domain. Oh, we're just going to tear down your house, but we're not going to pay you for it. Or if we do pay you, we're going to pay you a baseline value for the land, not the house, not the property on it, none of that. We're going to pay you pennies to the dollar to get you out of here. And whole families who owned a home because grandpa or daddy served in the military wiped out from their own possessions that they weren't even getting any credit for anyway to build a highway. Or later on to build a garage or a public building. We got people right now walking around in France and in Europe saying that during the Nazi takeover and fascism, their families were forced to sell high-end art for pennies on the dollar. And now they're saying, no, we need to get that back. You owe us that. And they're giving it back to them. But in New York, Chicago, Detroit, and on and on and on and on, not just the South, people were ran out of these areas, gave up white stones, gave up buildings, gave up property, which was flexed to be undervalued. And so today, when I sit on, and I apologize to you all, I haven't been on in about 2 weeks, but when I get on and I talk about this history, and then we try to teach you, they call it ethnic studies, I call it history. I call it history. The idea of blocking diversity, equity, and inclusion, the idea of blocking history, the idea of blocking you to understand. Because we come up with this idea that is divisive. While the same people do xenophobic things and bar people out and lie and allow public and institutional and social inequalities to grow in this country. We cannot be united. We can never be united if we can't be factual and truthful to each other. We have to acknowledge. And we won't even do that. We tell ourselves reparations is about guilt. First time you hear somebody say reparations, first thing coming out of your mouth is, I wasn't a slave owner. Nobody said you were. But as I told you earlier tonight, those banks, those businesses that still exist today, the wealth of your family, based on those FHA loans, based on those the ability for your family to pay very little back for the homes and houses that you had, the cars and the land that you had, that you could then use that wealth to grow your businesses, to grow your middle class wealth, to put your kids through college. It is both hidden and blatant, but the impact of these policies still affects us today. It is why I say we should teach real history in our schools. It is why I say we should push for people to be literate and how this history affects your financial literacy. How you own homes, how you protect your rights. All of this is tied. Because if you can't feed your family, if you can't take care of your family, and you work hard every day, put that thought in your mind. 30, 40 years and your property got no value. And the city comes and says, we're getting rid of it. You got nothing to leave your kids. Can you imagine the heartbreak? I agree, Pastor Sarton. What happened in the past is the reason some people think it's still okay to repeat the same acts again. And they're doing it. They're doing it. And daring you to say something about it. Daring you to say that it matters. I wanted this episode, I really tried to get in you all, because what I did not want to do is go another week and not be able to get on. I greatly enjoy doing the interactive. It is important to me that we do it and that we get on here and that we try to provide history to you. I ask that you share this program. I ask that you grow this network. This is a work that we really, really are dedicated to. I will put in some sources for you for tonight, specifically about the GI Bill and redlining, and places for you to go read on your own, how how home ownership has fluctuated over the years, what these HOLC, FHA, and mapping legacies, what they've done for us. So many things have been really, really affected. You say, I believe true reparations will be healthcare and education that doesn't bankrupt people. I don't think it's the perfect solution, but even the discussion, John, is something that should be done. And we don't even really, a lot of us don't even want to discuss it. Right? You have this situation going on with Westmore, San Francisco reparations. It's so much going on. And a lot of people are not informing themselves with the history of it and how it affected so many other people. And so what I wanted to do tonight was really, really get into that as much as I could and go into the idea of what these redlinings and things, how they affected people and how they still affect people. Because I just feel like we have to do better. Before I get off here tonight, though, one of the reasons that I have not been with you all for the last 2 weeks is I'm a little behind, and I have been working on my book, my latest book. I am dedicated to getting this book done because I truly believe that education has to also start with our young people. And so I am pushing to get a book out for our young people. I had to do a lot of rethinking for this book, and in the way of how do I present it and how do I make sure it's something of quality for our young people to learn from, as well as their parents and others. Because one of the things that we wanted to do with this network is to teach, is to inform. It is something that we're dedicated to, something that we, me and my wife greatly work on when we do our shows. We try to make sure we're providing you with something that is educating you fully. And if you were to go to my, because I don't think I have the graphic up, if you were to go to my Facebook page or others, you would see the book. I was trying to see if I could pull up an image of it, but I guess I'm having problems with that. But the book is called Who Am I? Who Am I? It is a book I am developing because, as I said, we are getting into a situation where we got to do better, ladies and gentlemen. And if we do not, right, we're going to put ourselves into a very bad place. I think I have an image. I'm going to share this image with you if you guys haven't seen the book. But I really, really wanted to do this. So this is the book that is getting ready to be done. I am finishing the last chapters or editing the last chapters. Who am I? Question for myself and my teachers. Here's the thing with this book. The reason why I'm even bringing it up tonight. I want you to dedicate yourself to prioritizing history. Because one of the things I'm going to definitely do is I'm going to make sure that we, in this coming generation, that young children are informed, that they're aware of what's going on, that they understand what happened in Jebel Arud, that they understand who the first humans were and where they were and what that means, and not a hominid, an actual Homo sapien, that they understand where cultures came from and not the 1,000-year lie that we've been told, right? There's more than just the Great Pyramids of Giza, right? Who were the ancient Kemet doctors? All of these things. It's the land of Punt, of Kush, right? Who was Queen Ameneres? Who and what did these policies, the knock, all of these different things. I want our young people to know that their history did not start with slavery. And I am bold enough to tell my son and what I'm doing to put questions in there that they can ask the teachers and, ladies and gentlemen, you as parents, grandparents and stuff too. Can you tell them, right, why the Great Zimbabwe was part of our trade routes and then linked to the Indian Ocean and to Asia, but that's not discussed in their textbooks? Can you tell them about the Abakari II, who gave his kingdom up to his brother Manu Musa, the richest man in the history of the world, so that he could launch 2,000 ships across the Atlantic to go to the Americas? But if that happened, why do we only learn about Columbus and everyone else? These are the things that I think we need to discuss. And so this book is designed for that, and it will be coming out. I'm putting a lot of work into it. That's why I wasn't really with you all for the last 2 weeks. I've been so overwhelmed trying to do so many things, but I want this book out. So be ready for that. That should be coming. I see my son put my ticker up here. I don't know if it was up. I wasn't really paying attention as I was teaching this lesson. But if you want to help with the Erudition Network, that is our Cash App that is down there. Anything and everything you do goes to help us with our organization, with our growing our tools, whether it be mics, whether it be cameras, whatever it may be. We greatly appreciate whatever you can and have done for us, and it is utilized for those purposes. You see on the side of my window here, I have the Erudition Network webpage. You can go there also, get information about us, books and links and everything else. All right. I went 6 minutes over what I wanted to do, but I want to say thank you all, everyone who joined me tonight. I hope you got something from this lesson. I hope you got something from it because I really wanted you to. If you have questions, issues or things, hey, put it in our chat. If you're watching the recording, please drop something in. I promise you I will respond and we can go from there. But until I see you next time, God willing, you all have a blessed rest of your week and a great weekend and a great Memorial Day. I really want you all to be safe. Be safe out there. We had we had tornadoes in our area recently. I want you to be safe, and I'm praying for you and your family. You all be blessed. And until next time, thank you so much.